Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Let me take this opportunity to thank my colleague Chairman for yielding, and I want to take this opportunity also to thank the ranking member and the Chairman for allowing me to participate in this committee, in this subcommittee hearing, an important one. I want to raise an issue with you, Mr. Grimm, that is very important to hardworking Americans in the U.S. territories, including Puerto Rico. As you may know, Puerto Rico and all U.S. territories are exempted from the Investment Company Act of 1940. And when you look at the history and the congressional record, the argument at the time was that these territories were far away and that it will imply more resources. Recently, it was reported that UBS was underwriting bonds for Puerto Rico's retirement system and then placing these same bonds into mutual funds that were sold to customers on the island. Would this practice be permitted in the 50 states?
So you correctly point out that the way the Investment Company Act works right now, there is an exclusion from registration for Puerto Rico and the other territories of the states. And what that means is that they are exempt from a number of the important investor protections that are in the Act: registration, disclosure, examination, and affiliated transaction provisions that apply to your standard mutual fund in the U.S. On your question of the UBS situation, I think it's a little hard to, I don't know the facts well enough to know how those provisions would apply, if they had applied, how they would apply to the UBS facts, but I guess ultimately I would say those affiliated transactions.
If UBS in the United States will be allowed to incur in the reckless, abusive behavior that they have done in Puerto Rico?
What is prohibited by the affiliated transaction provisions for investment companies in the U.S. is purchases and sales between affiliates and the funds, underwriting of or purchases of bonds from affiliated underwriters. So again, I don't know the specifics of the UBS case, but that's the way the provisions work here in the States for those that are registered under the Investment Company Act.
Do you believe that American citizens in Puerto Rico are at a disadvantage because they lack the investor protections of the Investment Act as afforded to those in the 50 states?
My understanding is that funds in Puerto Rico are subject to some kind of an investment company law. I don't know the details of it, so therefore it's hard for me to compare the two laws. But I would say.
Well, the question is simple: Puerto Rico and the U.S. territories, American citizens who reside in the island of Puerto Rico, are exempted from this law, the Investment Act of 1940. My question to you is, do you believe that this loophole should be closed? Since, as you can see in the congressional record, it shows that there was not a principal issue at the time, but just the fact that the distance, the cost, the resources. Do you think we should close that loophole and grant the same investor protections that we afford to every American citizen? Do you think that veterans in Puerto Rico who go and fight for this country should be afforded the same protections?
I think that the investor protections of the Investment Company Act are critical to all kinds of investors disclosure, transparency, affiliated transactions. All that stuff it's the bedrock of what I do every day, so I believe in it very much.
And so it means that you believe that that we should close this loophole.
I understand that there's some legislative discussion about just that question, whether to close that loophole. My understanding is that the Commission hasn't offered a view on that legislation, but obviously I'm happy to provide our technical expertise on it.
Well, I introduced legislation to close that loophole, and I just asked the chairman and the ranking member that we work together so that we could afford the same protection that is provided to every American citizen in the United States and the 50 states to the people of Puerto Rico and the U.S. territories.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back.
I yield back.